Opening Declaration, Westside Grace Ministries, Bishop Michael Anthony McDaniel, CSI, Critical Scripture Investigator, FBI, Forensic Bible Investigator, Senior Investigator, Westside Grace Ministries, Rightly Dividing the Word of Truth through Investigative Scripture Analysis, Forensic Biblical Sermon, Covenant Giving. Introduction. Few subjects in modern Christianity create more confusion, manipulation, guilt, and doctrinal division than the subject of giving. Some teach giving as legal obligation, others teach prosperity contracts, while others reject giving entirely because of abuse they have witnessed. But the real investigative question is not, how do churches raise money? The real question is, how does covenant context determine biblical giving? Many believers mix Old Covenant taxation, Levitical support systems, temple obligations, and New Covenant grace principles without properly distinguishing the covenants. The study asks an investigative question: are you interpreting biblical giving through covenant context or through inherited religious assumptions? Sermon thesis: biblical giving changes administratively across covenant structures, but the principle of honoring God through faithful stewardship remains constant. Old Covenant giving functioned through national Israel, temple support, priestly maintenance, and covenant taxation. New Covenant giving functions through voluntary grace, cheerful stewardship, gospel support, and spirit-led generosity. Failure to distinguish covenant administrations creates doctrinal confusion and financial manipulation. Primary text: 2 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians 9, 6, 8, KJV. But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. Every man according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that ye, always having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work. Author identification: author, Paul the Apostle. Approximate date, written approximately AD 55 to 57. Primary audience: the Corinthian church and broader Gentile believers, contributing relief support for suffering Jewish believers in Jerusalem. Geographical setting: written during Paul's missionary activity within the Roman world, likely from Macedonia. Literary genre: New Testament epistle. Covenant setting: New Covenant church age, following the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Biblical timeline placement: this passage belongs to the apostolic expansion period of the first century church after Pentecost and during organized missionary and benevolence efforts among believers. What is a pericope? A pericope is a complete literary and contextual unit of Scripture forming a unified thought, scene, or argument. A failure to recognize proper pericope boundaries often produces proof text theology, covenant confusion, and financial abuse in teaching about giving. ACSI step pericope, scene boundary control, primary pericope, 2 Corinthians 8 to 9. These chapters form one connected discussion concerning grace giving, ministry support, generosity, and relief offerings. This pericope is not primarily about manipulating wealth, guaranteeing riches, or establishing mandatory percentages. It concerns covenant stewardship and voluntary generosity. CSI Step 1, Observation, CSI Scene Evidence. Paul repeatedly emphasizes willingness, readiness of mind, cheerful participation, and voluntary generosity. Notice what Paul does not say: give under compulsion, give to purchase miracles, give to force God's favor, give to earn salvation. 2 Corinthians 9:7, KJV. Every man according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. The phrase, not of necessity, directly challenges coercive religious pressure. Investigative question number 1. Question, why is covenant distinction necessary when teaching biblical giving? Answer, because not every financial instruction in Scripture belongs to the same covenant administration. CSI Step 2, Historical and Contextual Analysis under the Mosaic Covenant. Israel functioned as a covenant nation. The Levitical priesthood required support. Temple operations required resources. More agricultural systems structured giving. Old covenant giving often functioned more like covenant taxation than voluntary new covenant stewardship. Malachi 3:10, KJV. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house. Critical context. This was spoken to covenant Israel under Mosaic administration concerning temple provision. A major hermeneutical error occurs when people automatically transfer every old covenant command directly onto the new covenant church without contextual analysis. CSI Interrogation Module, MSM Plus Apologetics Analysis, MSM Observation. Many modern teachings on giving ignore covenant distinctions, audience relevance, temple structure, priesthood function, and historical administration. As a result, guilt replaces grace, pressure replaces generosity, manipulation replaces stewardship. Apologetics analysis, biblical giving must never be defended through fear tactics, selective proof texting, emotional exploitation, or promises God never made. False teaching frequently isolates verses from their covenant setting. Proper apologetics requires proper hermeneutics. Investigative question. 2. Question, does new covenant giving eliminate generosity? Answer, no. The new covenant raises giving from legal obligation to spirit-led stewardship motivated by grace and love. Acts 4:34, 35, KJV. Neither was there any among them that lacked, for as many as were possessors of lands or houses sold them and brought the prices of the things that were sold, and laid them down at the apostles' feet, and distribution was made unto every man according as he had need. This was voluntary sacrificial generosity, not coerced taxation. Case law principle. Paul frequently used Old Testament principles while applying them within New Covenant administration. The principle may continue while the covenant structure changes. Example, supporting ministry workers remains valid, but the administrative structure differs from Levitical temple operations. 1 Corinthians 9, but 13, 14, KJV. Do ye not know that they which minister about holy things live of the things of the temple? Even so hath the Lord ordained that they which preach the gospel should live of the gospel. Paul uses case law reasoning. He draws from Old Covenant priestly principle, then applies the principle appropriately to gospel ministry. An investigative question, resume 3. Question, what is the danger of removing covenant context from financial teaching? Answer, it can transform biblical stewardship into religious exploitation. SI Step 3, crossing the principalizing bridge, timeless principles. 1. God cares about the heart behind giving. 2. Ministry support is biblically legitimate. 3. Generosity reflects spiritual maturity. 4. Giving should never be manipulated through fear. 5. Covenant context determines doctrinal application. CSI Step 4, consulting the biblical map supporting scriptures, Luke 6:38, KJV. Give, and it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down and shaken together and running over. This teaches generosity, not financial gambling with God. 1 Timothy 6:17-18, KJV. Charge them that are rich in this world, that they be not high-minded, that they do good, that they be rich in good works, ready to distribute, willing to communicate, The emphasis is stewardship and generosity. Matthew 23:23, KJV. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye pay tithe and have omitted the weightier matters of the law. Even precise external giving can coexist with spiritual corruption. CSI Step 5, Living Out the Investigation. Practical applications. 1. Give with understanding. Do not give merely because of pressure. Give with biblical conviction. 2. Support sound ministry. Scripture supports the financial support of faithful ministry labor. 3. Reject manipulative theology. Any teaching that weaponizes fear, shame, or greed deserves investigation. 4. Practice cheerful stewardship. Christian giving reflects worship, gratitude, and partnership in ministry. 5. Study covenant distinctions carefully. Not every biblical financial system operates identically across covenants. Context matters. Critical analysis. Some modern prosperity systems commercialize faith, distort covenant promises, and present God as a transactional mechanism. But Scripture presents giving as stewardship, worship, compassion, partnership, and gospel support. The new covenant believer does not give to purchase salvation. The believer gives because salvation has already been freely given through Christ. Your final summary: Old covenant giving operated within temple systems, Levitical administration, and covenant nation obligations. New covenant giving operates through grace, willingness, cheerful stewardship, and gospel partnership. The principles of honoring God and supporting ministry remain, but covenant administration must be interpreted correctly. Hermeneutics protects believers from financial confusion. Apologetics defends biblical stewardship against distortion. The investigation continues. Are you studying covenant giving contextually or accepting inherited assumptions without investigation? Final investigative challenge. Are you interpreting giving through covenant precision or through religious tradition disconnected from context? Are you practicing biblical stewardship or responding merely to emotional pressure? Like, share, and follow this ministry. K. Westside Grace Ministries. Bishop Michael Anthony McDaniel, CSI, Critical Scripture Investigator, FBI, Forensic Bible Investigator, all scripture quotations from the King James Version, KJV. Rightly dividing the word of truth through investigative scripture analysis.